Okay, so I'm getting ready for a brand new studio and kind of a big studio install coming up, utilizing some methods that I've never really used in the studio, particularly Dante. So behind me here is kind of a stack of new gear. There are still some things that need to arrive, but basically I'm going to catalog the process of trying to set up this new Dante system as a tester for when I move into the studio in maybe 3 months' time. Here we go. So I was editing through this morning, good morning, and realized that I missed a really critical piece of information that I probably need to go over, which is what is Dante Audio? Dante is an audio networking solution, which is able to send and receive multi-channel, uncompressed, low latency audio. Dante is also a networked video solution too, although that's not what I'm planning on using this for. Maybe later, let's see what happens with that. But let's give you a little bit of perspective. So at a standard audio resolution that we're all using today, one Ethernet cable of Dante audio can be up to 512 channels. Now I know that I have a lot of audio nerds watching, and I also have a lot of probably Brit Floyd friends and fans watching. So let's use Brit Floyd as an example here. So our stage, I'm taking a kind of a guess here, but it's probably 120 channels of audio for everything that we have on stage. That means that realistically, 4 of those stages can be handled on one single Ethernet cable in channels we're able to send and receive. My big want for going into Dante for my own studio is actually not so much that I kind of really, you probably can't tell this from all the in this room, but I kind of really enjoy minimalist things, and dealing with a million cables and things like that in the studio is just like, it sucks. It's things to trip over. It's potentially instruments that you harm when you're doing that. It's a lot to deal with. So if I can manage it on something that handles more things in one place, this makes a lot more sense for me. Also, in the case of the studio, like, you could put if you have Dante mic pre's, you can put mic pre's anywhere in the room and network them through Ethernet. So for instance, if I'm sitting at my drums, tracking drums, and I want control of the levels of the microphones while I'm sitting there, while I'm gaining the microphones, I can actually install mic pre's next to the drums and send them hundreds of feet away and not need to be in the control room. So I'm kind of guessing that if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in how I hooked up the Dante network. So there's a couple different ways that you can do things. You can daisy chain things, which they don't really recommend. And I ended up choosing the star pattern. So this network switch is my central hub, and I've got all of my items, the computer, the 1073 through the radial, which is actually putting on the Dante network, and then the headphone amp that are all individually connected into this network switch. Okay, back to the rest of this video. So the first step of things that I need to do in this process is actually to kind of completely rearrange my audio desk as it sits now. 1, for ergonomics, and 2, to complement this gear in its workflow. So let's kind of start at the beginning of this process here. First of all, I needed to move some rack gear out of here, particularly my 1073 was needing to live in another piece of rack furniture. And the big thing here is new DAD interface and out with 2 Focusrite units, which were no longer being used. The next thing I really wanted to clean up in the process was honestly the back of this desk in terms of cabling was an absolute hellscape nightmare. I wanted to uncable everything and completely reroute everything, just kind of cleaning it up so that my life was going to be easier later on. And then after that, after all the cables had been rerouted, I want to go back through and add some vent units just to kind of take up some space. Like I wanted the DAD to be able to breathe. I wanted the power in the center to be able to breathe. And then last but not least, I later installed some kind of like rack mount kind of brush panels that you use to run cabling through, and it makes it look a little bit cleaner. In the process of this, I also uninstalled my second monitor. I moved it over onto another piece of rack furniture, and then later when I get into the new studio, it's going to be a very large TV behind the desk. Okay, so just a little bit of an update here. I've been still working on this room for a couple of days, cleaning things up. I finally got the DAD interface installed. I've hooked up the router and I've hooked up the Focusrite headphone amp. This is like the first level of my test to see if I can send audio from my computer to the headphone amp. And then in a couple of days, a piece of gear that will allow me to hook my BAE 1073 up to the Dante network will arrive, and I'll be able to test if I'm getting microphone preamps over Dante as well. For right now though, I'm doing a whole bunch of setup, just kind of getting the DAD software working. And then I really have to dive into how this works, and then also like Dante virtual sound card and all of those things as well. On a super plus side so far though, I'm already seeing green lights on the network, and I'm seeing that signal is actually passing through, or at least talking between the components. All right, so I rode all the way home because I saw an Amazon shipment came in. I had to order a couple of things. I'm kind of ordering a bunch of things along the way as I find out, little bits of things that slipped through the cracks when I was trying to plan out for this. And one of these things, weirdly enough, was a Thunderbolt cable. So the DAD interface did not actually come with a Thunderbolt cable or a power cable. So I had to order one of those too. I had a kind of a cheapo one to use for the time being, and I ordered like a nice braided one for later, so that'll be in on Friday. For now, I'm going to connect this up and see if I can get full functionality out of this interface, including Dante headphone connection. All right, just a little update here. So after about an hour of kind of dicking around with various drivers and all of these things, installing the license for Dante, and also dealing particularly with the Dadman software that comes with the interface, I was finally able to route headphone outs, and they're showing up now on the Focusrite headphone amp. I guess to do a little celebrating for this, I'll take a few extra seconds to just install a couple other things that have come and head home for the day. I'll come back in about 2 days, and I think we're going to be able to try to do the mic pre on the Dante network through a radial Dan TX2, which is kind of my last step in making sure that I'm not making a giant mistake with this system. All right, so another little update. This is about 2 days later than I got in here from the last time. I came back today, I think I came in this morning around 11 or so, and started kind of wiring up as much as I could because my monitors were unplugged, my monitor controller was unplugged. Just a lot kind of going on behind the desk, so I got that knocked out. But I just saw here a couple hours later that some packages have arrived from Guitar Center and from Vintage King. So I need to go pick those up and get some more installation done. I'm kind of hoping that it's going to be this radial TX2 that I bought. I think it's called Dan TI TX2, but it's basically a 2-channel unit that allows me to run my 1073s into this the Dante infrastructure. I hope those are the words that I'm looking for. So it's kind of the final test of if this Dante stuff is working together. So let's go pick up some more gear. All right, just a little 2-second update on the way home. I got distracted and went to Bojangles, and I had to get some bow rounds real quick. So in a moment, we will finally be on the way to get some more gear. And as anticipated, here we are. So the radial unit finally arrived. Installation was not terrible. The mounting system that they sent with it was not my favorite that I have experienced so far, but it's kind of worked out. It seems like it doesn't quite want to fit the wide 19-inch rack panels, but we'll see. I probably will put a second one in there, so I hope they both fit. But with the radial in place now, I can test the 1073. And then last at this particular stage, I decided to separate my 2 SSL units, and I put my UF8 on the left side, which is an 8-channel controller for what I use it for Studio One, and the UF1, which I use as kind of the master controller for that, is on the right side along with my Heritage Audio monitor controller. I did this in order to free up the center of my desk and also make it maybe a little bit more ergonomic for my workflow. Also in the process of getting the radial unit, the same day I received the 8 channels of DAD mic pre's that I had ordered for this unit. In order to get those in there, you actually have to take the top off the DAD and install the circuit board in the system. I got those mic pre's in there. They showed up right away, which was really good. They showed up inside the Dadman software, I should actually say. Those are digitally controlled preamps, so you have to do everything from the software. And at the same time, now I slightly understood how to use the Dadman software and the Dante software. So the radial was showing up, the 1073 was working, and basically with that, I'll call this my level 1 test was concluded. Hello and good morning. one little last round of stuff that I need to install today. Okay, so just a little bit of an update. So I had to stop for a couple of days to take care of some client work and knock some things out. Thankfully, I didn't need to finish my test to be able to do that. But I finally just now had success. Like, of course, this is like 5 minutes before I leave for a gig. But basically, you know, trying to route that radial that the 1073 is connected to is honestly like a really easy thing. And I accomplished that. I got some signal through it. I just ran my base through that, and it showed up everywhere that it was. I think my biggest issue with the Dante stuff is that I'm really bad with these kind of like matrix grid systems where I'm having to more or less route audio. I feel like if I'm reading this right, I'm having to do it in 3 different places. Okay, so the first one is in Dante controller, and you can probably see up here, you know, transmitters and receivers. So I'm kind of learning where this needs to go. So the radial, which has 1073s in it, is getting routed into the AX center, right? Which is the interface that I have over here. Great. And then when I get done with the Dante controller step, by the way, this is all Dante controller, then I have the Dadman software, which is another matrix, right? So up top, you can see that I have my preamps. I have like 2 on the front of this, and then there's 8 of them on the back of it. Then I've got my digital to analog here, which is more or less like my monitor and headphone stuff that's built into the system. And then last but not least, I have like this matrix grid thing where I'm actually routing. You can see here, these are my 10 DAD preamps that I'm having to route, which I got signal on, obviously, because they're built in. I routed them to Thunderbolt. Sorry, that's probably the screen that you probably want to see. And then last but not least, I had to route. These are where the radials with the radial with the 1073s are showing up. So I had to route that also. So the routing that I had to do was, you can see AD, analog to digital, to Thunderbolt over there. And then last but not least, my Dante system, which is right here. I also had to route that to Thunderbolt finally. So in all reality, I'll kind of say this out loud, like, when I first had discussed doing a Dante system with some engineers, I think a lot of people tried to kind of caution me against doing this system. I won't say scare me away from it, because I think that's a bad word, but you know, Dante at its core is like kind of networked audio, and for me, who has never done any of that stuff, seems a little bit scary. But after doing the Dante level 1 certification, which was hard, I have to admit that putting all this stuff together and making it work was actually really easy, and it just required me to understand the workflow of you know, what needed to be routed where, and like where the computer was looking for audio. It's really not bad at all. So on the next steps of this stuff, I wanted to install some 8-channel Dante microphone preamps, as well as some preamps that would operate over ADAT, which is obviously a lot easier, but then again, I have to route them inside at least the Dadman software. So all of this to say, if you are on the fence about incorporating some Dante stuff into your system, I don't think that you have a lot to worry about. I mean, just leave yourself a little bit of room so that you can, you know, spend some time to understand the system and like how it works. Get your Dante level 1 certification. I think it took me like, I don't know, I probably did it over 4 days, and I did like just a little bit every day. And I probably will actually do the Dante level 2 certification, which is more complex systems. Like, if I feel like if I spend a little bit more time with this and then add that certification on top, you know, I probably have a lot of knowledge that I can use in my studio setup going forward, and maybe even helping some other people out along the way. This is not nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. So with all of that I just told you, I had been waiting to kind of get this set of tests done, you know, the getting audio through the headphone amp and also audio from the mic pre into the system over the Dante network. With this completed and working now, I'm going to fill out the rest of my audio setup with, you know, the more mic pre's and things like that. So as I do that, I'll definitely make another video about how hopefully easily all of that stuff integrated into my system. And then last but not least, I'll probably make another video as we transfer all of that stuff from this room into the new studio when it's done. Thanks for tuning in to watch the first part of me bumbling through a studio install. And I'm looking forward to sharing more of this process with you guys.